Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, and welcome back to our lovely little festive park micro-series here in Planet Coaster 2. It's a little bit less than a mini-series, so hence why it's a micro-series. And in this series we are creating a little festive park in Planet Coaster 2 to sort of showcase and have a bit of a play around with the festive pack stuff that came out, the festive scenery pack stuff that came out in Update 8. So, where are we? Well, last episode we finished our Christmas market, which is quite fun, sits in the middle of a bobsled coaster, Gerstlauer bobsled I believe, and then we finished all of that. We made that little Christmas market, and we're now moving on to something slightly different. Now, it was just going to be the little market, but I thought it would be a shame to waste all of the other pieces, so we are making a little gingerbread village and town, just to sort of, again, play around with these bits and see what we can do with them. So we're starting off here with this ride. It is a swinging ship, pirate ship ride, which I quite like, and we are theming it around this sort of dock area, which I quite like. So yeah, we're making this Candyland dock, and obviously there's this pirate ship that's docked here, and we're just going to play around with that and see what we can do, which is quite fun. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just getting the queue line all sorted with this lovely piece of theming that we've got right in the middle of it. It's this, it's almost church-like, but it's not a church. It's meant to be sort of one of these dockmaster, I think that's the technical name for them, harbour master, that's it. It's supposed to be a bit of a harbour master shack, or something on the docks, which is quite fun. So it comes with, obviously, this church that's all... I've called it a church again. I didn't mean to. It comes with that on the platform, and the other thing we're building on a platform is a bit of a dock crane. Now, I was going to use the boatyard crane that came with the ever so wonderful piratey stuff. Was it the piratey stuff, or was it... No, it was the Viking stuff in this game. So I was going to use that. But I then thought, actually, is it worth doing that, or should I challenge myself and actually make something? So I'm challenging myself and I'm actually making something, and we're making a little boatyard crane out of these gingerbread pieces, and I really like the way that this all turns out in the end. It all looks really nice, and I really can't complain kind of with the results, which is excellent. Sort of placing these down, and you can start to see it take shape. It's slowly getting there, and I think the more sort of bits and pieces we put into it, the more it will make sense what this is actually supposed to sort of look like, which is fun. But yeah, so why a Candyland dock? Well, I wanted to put a swinging ship ride in because in my experience, you sort of see these at Christmas markets, and it's why I wanted to sort of get one in, because I remember going to the Christmas markets in Liverpool and seeing one, and I was like, ooh, that's cool, I want to do something like that. But I didn't have enough space in my Christmas market, so it's going here in our little town. And you can now see sort of this crane taking shape with these icing windows on the top, and again, I think it just looks slightly whimsical, slightly fun, but it really does look quite nice. Now, I'm not limiting myself to gingerbread because this is supposed to be slightly Candyland-esque, so I was going to put some candy canes in, but they didn't look right, so instead we're using these sour strips. I love these in real life. Like, they are so tasty, so brilliant to eat, and it looks good for the purpose that I wanted to use it for here, which I believe is sort of the most important thing. You know, you look at this and you're like, ooh, that doesn't look too bad, and then we're going to put a bit of a hook on it using these jelly gems, and we're going to come back to that and change that up in a bit. But using these same sour strips, we are going to come in and sort of build a frame for this building. You know, it's one of the things of, we've only got one column in this pack, but in reality we've got many, many columns because we've got these sour strips. We have all of the stuff from... we've got all the chocolatey fingers, and we've got some chocolatey wafers, which I like those all. Those all look quite good, and it just takes a little bit of lateral thinking to go, ooh, let me think outside the box and see what I can do. Now you can see me here playing around with these pink wafer biscuits, trying to get a bit of a fence on that bit, and there will be a fence on it later. I will tell you that. But for now, let's put some bits and pieces down. Now I find these Viennese fingers, and I thought actually putting them on the side of the crane just adds a little bit more texture to it, which is quite good. I like the way that that looks. And sort of by placing all of these bits of confectionery down, there's the wafers. It's all quite good. Now I told you not to get attached to that jelly gem hook, because here's where we're changing it. And it's right, we are switching it out for this sort of wafer, long wafer cylinder and these sour strips. Almost as if it's a, almost as if it's, you know, a pipe being carried. And we've had a bit of a jump in the footage there because obviously I can't exactly show everything, or this video would be 2 hours long. So what we've done is we've just gone and we've finished that, and we've built some fences out of the chocolate fingers. And I've built a little bit of a lake in the background with a small boat on it, which looks quite good. And now we're coming to theming the boat itself, and we're starting with, again, these chocolate dipped fingers, because they just look slightly silly, but using them as the beams here works so well. But I've used too many of them, so instead we switch it out for these wafer straws, and it looks so much better. And one of the things that I didn't realise about this is that the snow would fall on these scenery pieces inside rides. I don't know if that's an intended feature, a bug, or whatever, but, you know, I won't complain too much about it because I think it looks quite good. You know, it sort of adds a frosted sugar look to the build, and, you know, again, I can't complain too much about it at all. And I am so glad, it is times like this where I am so glad that the feature that allows you to just mirror pieces is on, because doing this twice would have been an absolute pain to sort. So instead, kind of getting everything in one works just as well for the purposes of this. So I really cannot complain. It looks good, and it almost looks bamboo-ish, but it's not bamboo. And then finally we'll come in and we'll place some sour strips down. And there we go. Now you may be thinking, oh, is that the end of this little project, this little ride? No, because the boat doesn't look nearly sweet enough. But before we get onto that, let's place some gingerbread walls down around this, just to, you know, gingerbread up the actual ride footprint itself. Because, you know, it wouldn't look right if we didn't make this all gingerbread, you know? So instead, as I say, we're coming in here, we're placing these gingerbread bits down, and we will make them conform to the slopes in a bit, which is what we're doing now. So it's very simple, just coming in here, making sure it's the right angle, and then placing it down. And there are little bits here and there at the bottom that aren't covered by the gingerbread, but it's fine. I think it looks alright, so if I think it looks okay, then it gets a pass. But yeah, just placing these gingerbread bits down, again, just adds so much to sort of the overall feel of this area, making it feel a little bit more gingerbready and sweet. And we can finally come in and play around with these icing trims. And actually coming in, placing these down, I think this is what really sort of makes it start to feel a lot more kind of... I was going to say interesting. Interesting's not the right word. I think the right word in this context is gingerbready. it makes it look a lot more like sort of the gingerbread that I'm looking for. And again, you can see it there. Sort of, it just adds that garnish on top. That just looks so nice. Now, turning our attention to the boat itself, it is time to have a bit of a play around and see what we can do to make it feel a little bit more like gingerbread. Now, originally I start with these small oblongs and copying them across, but the only problem is when you mirror them, I don't know what it is, but it flips them around, which really isn't ideal. So instead, we're going to place them all by hand, because that is what we do. Yeah, you can see there me playing around with the mirroring of them and just going, yeah, no, it just doesn't look right. And then I try them all in the same direction, mirrored, but because it's all going the wrong way, it all looks wrong, and all of this, all of that. So, yeah, you know, what can I say? It's a fun little process, this. It's a lot of trial and error going, okay, what works, what doesn't work, and how do we make it work? And then coming over to the other side, we are going to question whether we can do that. And I will say that the one thing I don't like about the way that that looks is that it's all angled and sloped, which really isn't great. So instead, we are going to have a bit of a play around with the hull and getting this gingerbread hull in and looking all right is really the thing that I think starts to make this actually look like a gingerbread boat in the way that I was wanting it to. Because, you know, it still looks like it's made of wood, and there's no option to change the colour of the wood, which is annoying. But coming in and placing all of these down like this, you can start to see it take shape in sort of that way that, you know, I was just really wanting it to take shape, which is good. But yeah, it is slightly silly looking, I will give you that, but I think ultimately as a way of playing around with this pack and showing off a little bit of everything, I think this was the right call. Then coming in here and placing a few more of these oblongs up here. I was going to do it to the other side, but for some reason it mirrored over, so I can't complain too much at all. Then by placing a couple of these oblongs in the middle, again, it just adds a little bit to the overall feel of this. So yeah, what we're now looking at is trying to get some gingerbread columns around the pillars of this of the ride, and it takes a bit of trial and error to get completely right, but I think once we get it to a point where we can start putting these in, I think it all looks really nice. You know, again, it's got that sort of frosted look, but you know, it looks slightly silly, again, I will give it that, but I think ultimately it works for its given purpose in this case, which I'm in really no position to complain about. So, instead of doing the simple thing of copying and pasting, we are going to completely start again from point 0 for this, which again involves me having the very, very fun job of trialing and erroring where it's actually going. And once I actually have where it's going in a sec, then it's just a simple matter of clickety, 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 and it's in. So there we go, that's the frame done, and we are going to have a... Well, there's our quick jump in the footage to a completed thing, and you can see there all of the stuff that I've done in the dockyard, which is fun. Now coming back down, we are actually starting on this little gingerbread town now with a clock tower right in the town square. And I was going to make it, you know, a massive, massive thing, but it just didn't look right, so instead we are coming down and we're making it significantly smaller, because I think it just looks slightly better at this relatively smaller height. And then you come in and placing down these 2.5 meter width walls, at, slightly bigger than usual, we can get what will ultimately be the clock faces, which is all good, fine, well, and dandy. Here, you can see me here trying to line it up and get it right, which is fun. And then, obviously, I need to find a roof for it. So I start off with these oblongs to try and, make a flat roof. And it doesn't work. It, really, really doesn't work in this case. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to delete all of these because I don't know what I'm doing. You can see me here going, ooh, how does this work? Does this work? No, it doesn't work. So instead, we're going to use these slightly bigger oblongs to actually make a slightly slanted roof at the top of the thing. And you can see it there, and it does, again, look slightly silly, but this is an area made of gingerbread. I think it's allowed to look silly. So, then coming in here and placing these gingerbread icing stars, we can start to build our clock faces, which was a bit of genius on my part. And then using these sort of I was going to say rotating. Rotating's not the right word. Using these circular. There we go. Circular icing pieces, we can sort of adequately build up a clock face now, which is fun. And then we can come in here and place these columns down. Now, had I remembered these columns earlier, I might have used them for the body of the gingerbread thing itself, but instead we're using it on the corners, and it adds that little bit of texture. And then coming in here, we can place down a door and a couple of windows. It's sort of like an aesthetic and maintenance thing, and there we go. We have a little clock tower, and I really like the way that this looks. Placing down these brick patterns as well, just, again, adds so much texture to what is just gingerbread at the end of the day. But I think it looks nice, it looks good, and sort of playing around with these bits and pieces, we can sort of leave it there, and instead we will come in here, we will place these chocolatey fingers down, and then we will start on our next bit of building, which is going to be here, where we're going to build an arch that sort of takes you into the area, which is quite fun. So I hate to say it, but I really like the way that this turns out. It's one of those things I'm always saying, and but no, I am genuinely happy with the way that this turns out. It takes a bit of trialing and erroring for me to get it right, but once I've got it right, it does look good. So we are having sort of this almost Bavarian look on it. I think back to the World's Fair pack in Planet Coaster 1. I think that came with a blueprint that looked somewhat similar to the style I'm going for with this, which is fun. Now, I was going to put this massive tower on the side, but it just didn't look right. So instead, we are just making that its own piece of thing. And then we can come in here and place down some slopes and some gables, and then we can get a roof on it, which I think the roof on this does look really cool. I really like the overhang pieces. I think the overhang looks like it works, and then it's quite fun. So what we can then do is, again, come in and place down these icing pieces, so we can adequately, have something that looks quite nice. And what I might do is in the future is make the back of that, instead of looking like gingerbread, look like the architectural style we've used, so it doesn't sort of spoil the fact that this is a gingerbread village before you get in there. But there we go. I do really like the way that this all looks. And then we can come in here and place some beams. I did toy with the idea of having the same beams as the dockyard, but I thought, actually, we can use chocolate fingers, and they look really... I actually like the way these look as sort of structural beams in this style. You know, it wouldn't work for everything. You know, you're building a Wild West, you wouldn't use these chocolate fingers, but then you might use them almost as logs or whatever, and I think they could work as part of a log cabin. And that's, you know, the joy of this game, finding ways of using parts in a way that they're not intended to be used. Now, I think we are slowly approaching the real-time segment for this episode and the roundup, and I will apologise ahead of time. I believe that my mic is a little bit off in the recording, so if I'm a bit quiet, then I can only apologise. But the last thing we will do before going out is build a little balcony. And while I'm building the balcony, I will say goodbye now, and I will, I will see you in a moment in real time. Yes, welcome back to real time. And we've got quite a bit done at this episode, although there is a lot more that needs to be done. Moving on from here, we have the Candyland dockyard done. Over here is a little bit of a dock to our the Jammy Dodger, our swinging ship, which is quite lovely. I like that, and I think it looks good. And then, of course, we've got our town square clock tower here in the middle. Before we've got our lovely archway, and this is sort of the way we're moving forward with this, with all of this over here within the next episode. But if you have enjoyed this, please give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a subscribe if I'm lucky enough, and I will see you in the next episode. Ta-ta, roll that outro.